Good evening, everybody. We're so happy to be here. This is episode 32 of Yet We Believe. That's the name.
All right, we made it through the name. Let's see where we're going to go next. Glad to have you all with us. The title of today's episode is You Can't Explain Spiritual Things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how the lack of a common spiritual vocabulary can divide us in some ways. So that's a little spoiler of where we're going to go with this. So starting from the beginning, I think we can all agree that spiritual things defy explanation.
Yeah.
It's something that's very personal. You can never really express to somebody else what a spiritual thing feels like in a way that they will understand it and be able to experience the same thing.
Yeah. It's probably very similar to explaining the flavor of, whatever thing. Lime, an apple, steak, whatever it is. Like your experience, your taste buds, everything is going to give you a very specific, unique experience. And so it would be the same.
There's a famous talk from Boyd K. Packer in 1988 talking to mission presidents about what does salt taste like. And that's kind of the classic... deeply overused analogy. And also there are words that describe what salt tastes like. So maybe not the best analogy.
Like salty? Is that?
Briny.
Oh.
Briny is a good one there. There's a number of them. And Elder Packer is using it to describe the knowledge that there is a God. Like you just know. And with salt, you just know what it tastes like. Right. Sort of a thing. So same thing with spiritual things. That said, we have some LDS vocabulary around this. Feeling the Spirit, burning the bosom, the still small voice, getting answers to prayers, the light of Christ, all of these sorts of terms. Did I miss any?
Oh, can you feel every fiber of my being?
See, there, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Right. So we have all these terms, and most of them feel cliche, at least the ones that I put here.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we don't have other terminology to describe these things, so we tend to fall back on the same sorts of things.
Well, yeah, and even though we have these things, clearly the most obvious is feel the Spirit is going to be different for each of us.
Yeah.
But even burning in the bosom, I get heartburn. Does that count? That is...
Different burning.
Well, but is that how I would explain it? A similar, a similar feeling, or is it something different? And so how I would explain that is going to be so different than how you would explain it.
Right. And I don't think I would explain feeling the Spirit as a burning in the bosom. Yeah. I don't usually use the term bosom.
No, I would go with my gut more.
Maybe so.
I feel it in my gut. Not the Spirit, but being led by the Spirit, I feel it more in my gut.
Right. And I tend to intellectualize things, and I might say something about putting ideas into my mind or something like that. So again, it's very different. It's very individual. And so here's where this starts to matter. So for me, for us, I'll speak for myself. My faith has evolved, and my relationship with God has evolved, and I can't describe it. So I can't tell you, I can give you some comparisons. I can say that I've moved away from a more checklist-oriented gospel and toward a greater focus on grace, greater relationship with God, but I can't take that and implant that into somebody else.
To have them understand it at the level that you understand.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
To the extent that if I think if I went back in time and was explaining this to myself 10 years ago, I wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, it's, my relationship with God is so great. And 10 years ago, me would say mine too. Be like, have this great relationship with God. And I'd be like, oh yeah, prayer is so meaningful. And 10 years ago, me would say, I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about, because me too. And I'm like, no, I can't explain this. I can't make you understand.
But at the same time, 10 years ago, you did know how to pray.
Absolutely.
You were having an experience with prayer that was meaningful and supported you.
Yes.
But it has just deepened and is richer now from the way that you've explained to me. And so it's not like we don't understand these things necessarily, but it's maybe the depth of it that we don't get when we're trying to explain to our old selves or to somebody who's maybe in a stage 1 black and white thinker sort of stage of faith.
I think if I was explaining to myself 10 years ago, oh, I don't do those things because it's a checklist anymore. I do them, because of, spiritual value. And 10 years ago, me would have gone, me too. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. And this is where I think the problem lies, when we let this divide us from other people. And so that's especially among us that, have gone through some form of deconstruction. Our faith has evolved. It's moved forward. There are things that we feel like we've left behind. And okay, I do this. I won't lay this at anybody else's feet, but I want to tell other people, maybe they're in my ward, and I want to say, no, you don't get it. You don't experience these things like I do. I'm so spiritually advanced. But you're stuck in the checklist mode. You're just going through the motions. Yeah. But obviously, I don't know anything about these people. They may be my friends. I may know them socially, but I don't know what spiritual experience they are having in their life. And so I'm certainly in no position to
judge.
Absolutely. To assert myself in comparison to them in any way.
Yeah. So I think when push comes to shove with this, one of the problems, like you said, is that because you have deepened your relationship with prayer and with contemplation, or whatever it is, with the way that you feel the Spirit or are interacting with divinity, there's like an air of privilege and
100%.
superiority. And I actually really love what Brian McLaren says about this, because he talks in his 4 stages of faith. So stage 1 is the binary thinkers. Stage 2 is more apologist, needing answers. Stage 3 is breaking it all apart. And stage 4 is harmony. Not that we all have the same belief system or way of approaching things, but that there's room for everybody.
Right.
And they're concentric circles. They build on each other. So in talking about harmony, he says, I don't want to be better than anyone. I don't want to win in any way that makes others lose. I even wince whenever I speak of the 4 stages, because I know that some people will interpret them in a way that makes stage 4 supreme, and that thought repulses me. Harmony is, at its heart, a state and a stage that loves solidarity, not supremacy. If it took the agony of doubt to bring me to this place, then thanks be to God, and blessed be doubt. And then I also found... from the Claremont Press, they said, does getting to harmony require one to give something up about one's own religious belief? Yes, just this, the loss of supremacy, the sense of religious privilege and superiority.
Yep.
So that is what we need to, we talk about these different spiritual vocabularies causing us to be divided. And I think it is because we feel that we are more spiritually advanced. We feel that we get it, and we've moved to a different plane. And and how lame are these stage 1 believers, and we look down our nose at them. And that is the problem with a lot of our wards not having unity. And I'm not going to not say that it's not the stage 1 people too, not making room for people with different beliefs. That is absolutely causing problems. But we that have deconstructed and are trying to rebuild, we are not doing any favors to our ward unity or community unity by looking down on people for having binary beliefs.
And that's actually going to be a facet of all 3 of the first 3 stages, is this feeling that I am in the correct stage.
Yeah.
And so in stage 1, you have this there's good guys and bad guys, and I'm on the good side. I have chosen correctly. And what are you guys doing? You kind of nuanced, people on the fringe. Why don't you have the faith that I do? And stage 2 is out there. I've got the answers. Yeah. I figured it all out.
Figured out.
Yeah. I've got my plan, and I've put it in action, and I figured it all out. And the people in stage 3 saying, oh my gosh, you guys in stage 1 and stage 2 are so, you're simpletons. You're not nearly as far along as I am. And so that kind of spiritual arrogance maybe is a facet of all 3 of those stages. And the elusive stage 4, which I don't think many of us ever get to, is being able to kind of shed that and give everybody space to worship how, where, or what they may. Sort of a thing.
This week on At Last She Said It, I heard a great little tidbit from Julie Hanks. They were interviewing Dr. Julie Hanks, and she said, in this world, there are 3 types of business. There's your business, there's other people's business, and there's God's business. So with every interaction, you have to figure out whose business are you in. God's business, we don't get to change. We don't really get to, impact. We can connect and have that connection with God, but when it's an issue relating to God, that's God's business. If it's other people's business, we know when we're in other people's business, right? And
hopefully.
Right? And then we just need to stick with our own business and figure out our own stuff and not be so concerned with what everybody else is doing and how they're defining, feeling the Spirit or obeying the law or, whatever it is. We need to relinquish that control of trying to tell everybody else how to do church.
Right.
And this is across the board. Everybody needs to do this because the key is agency.
Right.
We chose agency, and that's why we're here. And we want to tell everybody what to do and take away their agency, essentially. And that's not good.
And there's as many different spiritual experiences as there are people. We have to be able to understand that as a church and make room for everybody to be having a different experience. And I think what I tend to do is somebody's up there teaching a lesson, giving a talk, and they're dropping the cliche phrases, right? I felt this burning in my bosom, and then I found my keys, or whatever it is. And I'm like, good on you. You learned how to use that phrase. Checked that box. This sort of thing. But I'm not in any position to say what they've experienced spiritually, just like they're not in any position to say what I have or haven't experienced spiritually. And so they may be up there telling the most cliche story I've ever heard that sounds completely disingenuous, sounds like going through the motions. They may be describing a really valid and a really deep spiritual experience that they had. And I don't know that, because we can't explain it. We don't have vocabulary for that. We can say the same things. Maybe somebody waxes a little more poetic, describes it in a new way. But overall, we're stuck using our language, our limited language, to describe infinite things, to describe eternal and holy things that transcend language.
Yeah. I wonder if it is... yes, I think that we do describe things differently, and we struggle on the vocabulary of what things mean. But how much of it is just not letting people explain it how they want and trust that that's their experience and that it's good for them? Because we want to put our experience onto them, or we don't want to value the way that they're saying something because we see it as a stage 1 description. And so we want to shun that, or, say, well, that's not deep enough, or you're not enlightened enough. But, when I was in a stage 1 place of faith, I feel like I had all the spiritual experiences.
It was great.
I had great experiences. It's what got us together,
we're talking about, going out as missionaries,
right?
Really important, formative spiritual times of life that were in earlier stages of faith.
Right. And so now when I look back, or when I hear people talking like that, it does feel very arrogant of me to say you're not having a very real experience, or it's not as deep as it could be. Like, come on, dig deeper, And so I think that if we want to take this to a practical place, how do we hear these things that maybe don't make sense to us, or maybe are they're describing their spiritual experience in a way that is cliche or juvenile or whatever it is.
Sure.
How do we allow is even the wrong word, but how do we make space for them to have those experiences and describe them that way without us feeling proud or, arrogant about what they're saying?
Right. And right at the heart of that question is this topic of belonging that we come back to kind of so often on this podcast. Because when I look at the experiences that we've had in our ward here in Utah, where we didn't feel like we belong, that question was right at the heart of it. Because I'm looking around going, why doesn't everybody think like I do? I don't think like everybody else. I don't belong here. We don't belong here. Everybody's having this different experience. They're in a different faith stage. We don't belong here. When I think that our experience is probably a lot more similar than it is different, and we're learning the same things, and we're showing up to the same Sunday school classes, and we're having spiritual experiences, all of us. And so I think one thing to answer that question is we have to recognize the validity of spiritual experiences in other people, because we are in no position to say what they do or do not experience.
Yeah.
And so even if it sounds shallow or something, that may just be in their ability to describe it.
Yeah. Well, you just said something that jumped out at me. And you said, we're showing up to the same class, having the same lesson. I don't think we ever are.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think we ever are showing up to the same class or the same lesson because we are showing up differently. And we're going to be getting different things from every lesson. And so I will be, thinking one thing about prophetic fallibility, let's say, and the sister across the room is going to be deepening her testimony of obeying the prophet in the first, with the first word that he says.
Yep.
And so, that comes from the same words that the teacher spoke. Right. So we are having completely different experiences from the same thing. And that's why general conference talks or stake conference talks, whatever it is, there is not a prescripted way, there should not be a prescripted way to interpret and apply those things to our lives, because every person that hears them is hearing them differently.
Yep. We had one of these lessons in Elders Quorum this past week. I think you had a similar one in Relief Society where it was like, hey, what was your favorite conference talk and what did you like about it? And there was some agreement on different things that were brought up, but overall it's people bringing up different talks and talks that I wouldn't have dreamt of bringing up or and they're like, yeah, this one was my favorite. And I was like, yeah, really? Yeah. That one?
Muted that one. Just kidding.
And it's because the experiences are so broad. Like I said, there are as many experiences as there are people. So when I'm showing up to my ward going, why doesn't everybody think exactly like me? That's a really fallacious argument because of course they don't and they never will. So why am I expecting something like that? And
how beautiful that they aren't. That we all get to experience spirituality and divinity differently. Yeah. That speaks to the power of our heavenly parents, that they can connect with each individual in a way and in the language that they are going to understand.
Right.
That's pretty dang incredible.
Okay, so let me add on to that. Do you think it's possible that not being able to fully communicate our spiritual experiences is actually a gift? That this is a feature and not a bug, because it means that every single one of us has to have our own spiritual experiences and we can't lean on somebody else's.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I feel like for decades I heard the same type of approach to the gospel, right? I was hearing the LDS version. And now when I've started to listen to non-LDS people, I'm understanding the gospel in a different way, and it has enriched my life. And so, the leaders, those two people that I'm hearing from, or groups of people, maybe wouldn't describe things the same way, but I'm getting different things from them
Yep.
that enrich my life. And so that does seem like a blessing and not a bug.
Yeah, I mean, if we watch General Conference and the general authorities could make us feel something, like, first of all, it sounds very Big Brother, kind of weird, but they can't, and they can give a powerful talk, and they can be guided by the Spirit in the way that they do it, but we still have to experience it on our own. And in that way, it makes everyone a mystic. You know, everyone has to have that personal relationship with God. You can't give your testimony to your kids. Mm-hmm. You can't get a testimony from a general authority. You know, Hugh Nibley talks about this. He talks about Augustine, you know, back in the early Christian days, and this is when they were creating like the priestly robes and hats and things that the clergy would wear. And Augustine described this in the Latin as commordio et multitudini tutior, which means making things handier and more reliable for the public. To kind of give them things that they could point their reverence to, physical things, earthly things, like what the priests were wearing, because you can't control the Spirit. You can't force somebody to have a spiritual experience, but maybe you could simulate it by giving them something grand to look at, or something grand that the priest was wearing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and Hugh Nibley points out the Spirit listeth where it listeth. It's going to go where it goes. And so that's why General Conference isn't a big, like, mind control exercise, because that's not how it works. They simply cannot communicate their experiences in a way that we will understand it in the same way.
Yeah. So what do you think, though, about people that try to mind control or try to harm somebody, anybody, with their testimony or with their words, or, you know, because...
Explain that.
Well, we hear comments that are extremely harmful. We hear talks in conference that can be extremely harmful. And they're not harmful to everybody, but they are harmful to the people that they are harming, right? Like LGBTQ people and the people that love them get harmed pretty much every conference.
Yep.
And so how do we create a buffer so that that stuff doesn't penetrate and we can still connect in the LDS way? We've chosen to be in this church. This is a daily choice to stay in this church. How do we stay? How do we hear these harmful things and not let them seep in and start to dig and destroy us?
Right. Well, let me first point out that there's going to be a talk and people are going to be harmed by it, and that's going to be somebody else's favorite talk.
Exactly.
You know, and that's part of what's so wild in this is you can say, you want to grab somebody by the lapels and say, how did you like that talk?
Yeah.
And they go, no, it was great.
Yeah.
You know, really
very true to me.
Yeah, it landed right with the way that my faith works. You know, and so how do we listen to those and not be harmed? Well, gosh, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes you mute General Conference.
Yep.
And it's okay, you know, and that actually that's going to be heretical to somebody that's listening. But it's acknowledging again that the breadth of spiritual experiences is so wide that even something that seems so faith promoting to somebody else is going to feel harmful to somebody else. Somebody else is going to feel pushed out by it because the breadth is as wide as it can go.
And I've heard somebody talk about having a bubble around us, and we get to control what happens inside the bubble, and we're not in control of anything that happens outside. And so when these harmful things come, we have to let it just smack up against the bubble and drip down and not come in. It does. We can't let it come in and carry that weight and emotion. And that is probably one of the hardest skills to learn how to do. Because everything I hear, I want to let it come in and I want to figure it out and see how it feels. There are some things I'm just going to step out and I'm not going to let that harm me. I'm not going to let it affect me. And I 100% understand the privilege that I am talking about, to be able to not let certain
sure.
things affect me or walk out of things. It's not that easy for everybody.
Well, and Richard Rohr would say you should take those things and embrace the paradox, that you should explore why these things make you feel discomfort and sit in the discomfort. And he is way beyond where I'm at spiritually.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard for me to do. And in certain cases, it's much easier for me to say, you know what, I'm going to wait for the next talk. This one's not for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. It's almost like we have to Marie Kondo this stuff. You know, she wrote the book about sparking joy, taking each thing and say, does this spark joy in me? Does this enrich my life or not? And then let go of the things that don't. And mm-hmm. that seems really hard to do within the gospel, because we're supposed to take everything and we know it's from God. You know, there's so many things we could say about it, but if we are trying to individuate our spirituality and take authority of our spirituality, then we need to be cognizant enough of the things that are happening and the things that we hear to say, that is not for me, that doesn't bring me joy, and I'm going to just let that go and move on to something else. And that does not have to diminish any truth of the gospel or any connection to being led by Christ. Like, we can have that paradox, like you were saying. We can hold both things, and it is hard, and it is a deep labor that we have to do, but it's worth it, I think, to try and figure out how to hold that paradox.
And one of the paradoxes that we talk about the most is believing that this is a church that is led by a prophet who is called of God, and that prophet can be imperfect. Mm-hmm. and can be fallible and is absolutely fallible. Yeah. And we're right at the crux. We've had a new prophet for 24 hours here, a little more than 24 hours, and we're going to see what President Oaks does as the president of the church. And we were thinking back to when President Nelson took on the prophetic mantle and made some changes kind of right away. Separated scouting from the church and
went to 2-hour church.
Yeah, and this was also rapid. Yeah. And there was new announcements every time. We were speculating about what's going to be announced in this general conference and what new thing is going to happen. And there was speculation online that the word of wisdom was going to go away, and all this. Some of it turned out to be crazy, but and we'll see what happens with President Oaks, knowing again that he's a human being, has made mistakes, will make more mistakes, and he has the unfortunate piece of when he makes a mistake, everybody sees it. Yeah. And when I make a mistake, very
it's
few.
Easy to hide.
Yeah, exactly. And so I get to hide behind that a little bit.
Yeah. So let's look really quickly as we're wrapping up again at the practical application of this. Okay. I think the two places that it probably will show up the most, where we need to give space and let people be in their spiritual stage, explain things in their spiritual way, those two places I think are at church, whether that is talks given in sacrament or comments in Sunday school or Relief Society Elders Quorum, whatever it is. Sure. And then the second place is comments online. Ooh. The comments online, we clearly see the division of stages of faith come out in comments. Yep. And very often online, it is used to beat someone down. Yep. To say you're stupid for thinking that, how could you believe that, and I loved Elder Stevenson's talk about peacemaking and asking yourself, if I respond to this right now, is this going to build a bridge or cause a problem? And if it's going to cause a problem, then maybe just don't do it. There's no reason to get into it online, and we all do it. Yep. Except for maybe you don't respond to people very often. Well, and to work things out.
Yeah, and even in that sense, it's because I'm often not giving people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And I'm not trusting that they're engaging in good faith. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody says something that's anywhere short of agreeing completely with me, I'm like, this person's wrong, or I'm blocking them or something, whatever. But but that's the opposite of what you're saying, which is giving people the benefit of the doubt, assuming that their spiritual experience is as genuine as ours is.
Yeah. And the hope is that eventually everybody would understand that and give everybody that same benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And we're not there. And that will take a lot of work to try and help people. And being in a stage of harmony where you do allow for that space does not mean that you just let people stay where they are. You can still talk to them, teach them about things, try to help them move along in their understanding. But that doesn't mean that, we just leave people and ignore them and say, well, to hell with them, like that's not what we do. And that's not being Christ-like. Right. Christ wanted to reach out to everybody and spread that love. He was very radical in the way that he loved people.
Right.
That's maybe the best example that we can use as we're putting this into application.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. I think maybe that'll do it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming. This was great. And if you didn't listen to it live, I guess you can listen online at any of the podcast places.
Yep. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We just found out we're on Audible. Yeah. So you can listen to us on Audible.
And YouTube.
Yeah, all the places. So appreciate you all, and we'll see you all next time.
See ya.